Everyone knows it, apparently except you.
Take your seat, sir. Take your seat.
Last night was Donald Trump's absolutely insane joint address to Congress, and the Bernie Sanders response to it is doing very well. I'll get to that in a bit. And there was one Democrat last night that stood up in defiance to Trump. So I will get to that and his response afterward to why he did it as well. Now, I streamed this insane speech last night with a few other people, Humanist Report, journalist Matt Binder, Rebecca Azor, and Ariana Jasmine. I will link to Humanist Report's link below the video. I took mine offline. It's unlisted now because it was boring. I don't want it on my page. It doesn't need to be there. But if you really want to go back and watch our reactions or lack thereof, just emotional response to the insane speech, you can check that out in the link below in the description box on YouTube. But going into last night, there was this idea that, don't worry, Democrats are going to figure out a way to defy the insanity that is this most recent Trump administration. But leading the charge of the idea that something may happen is Democratic House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries. This is the this is the guy that people are relying on for some kind of reaction.
I'm trying to figure out what leverage we actually have. What leverage do we have? They control the House, the Senate, and the presidency. It's their government. What leverage do we have?
Inspiring words from Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries there. Now, maybe he got, this was a month ago, maybe he got a big reaction to how ridiculous it is to lay down and do nothing, that he thought this time, all right, you know what? I'm going to stand up for my constituents. I'm going to stand up for human rights, for voters, and we are going to do something to defy Trump. Except he cracked down on speech disruptions. So, writing here, it's from Axios, that quote could be a sign, it could be a shirt, it could be many things, the lawmaker said. So this is somebody who wanted to do something. But at House Democrats' closed-door caucus meeting Tuesday morning, Jeffries and others in leadership discouraged the use of such props, according to multiple lawmakers who were present. Not even supporting props, which I gotta say is really doing nothing. But to not even allow the bare minimum is a little ridiculous. Despite that, there were some in the crowd there that did wear some props. So some Democrats wore a shirt with "resist" on it. Again, how you feel about this is up to you. I feel like this doesn't really do anything. But some others held up signs that said things like "Musk steals," "Save Medicaid," "Protect veterans." All right. Okay. Colbert made fun of how ridiculous all of this was with his sign, "Try doing something." Very nice. But there was one man last night that actually did something. Al Green. This is a representative from Texas who stood up in defiance, screaming out during the early part in Trump's speech. This is a great photo. I wish I knew who took it. I have not been able to find the photo credit, but if I can find it, I will link to them below the video. Great photo here of Al Green. Let me get to the disruption, him being kicked out, and then afterwards, what he said to reporters about what he was saying there and why he did it.
Mr. Green, take your seat. Take your seat, sir. Take your seat. Finding that members continue to engage in willful and concerted disruption of proper decorum, the chair now directs the Sergeant-at-Arms to restore order. Remove this gentleman from the chamber.
Now, while we were watching this live last night, we sort of expected this to continue happening. I know maybe we expect too much, but I thought this was going to be like the beginning of constant interruptions by Democrats. That would have been a way to really get under Trump's skin, as well as just be a clear protest of everything Trump is doing. But no, Al Green was the only one, and then he left. So let me get to what he told reporters about what he was saying there and why he stood up.
So what were you shouting to the president?
The president said he had a mandate. And I was making it clear to the president that he has no mandate to cut Medicaid. I have people who are very fearful. These are poor people, and they have only Medicaid in their lives when it comes to their health care. And I want him to know that his budget calls for deep cuts in Medicaid. He needs to save Medicaid, protect it. We need to raise the cap on Social Security. There's a possibility that it's going to be hurt, and we've got to protect Medicare. These are the safety net programs that people in my congressional district depend on. And this president seems to care less about them and more about the number of people that he can remove from the various programs that have been so helpful to so many people.
Is yelling during a speech the best way to get that across?
It is the best way to get it across to a person who uses his incivility, against our civility. He is a person who has consistently been used incivility against civility.
Do you have no mandate? Is that what you said?
Well, look, I'm willing to suffer whatever punishment is available to me. I didn't say to anyone, don't punish me. I've said I'll accept the punishment, but it's worth it to let people know that there are some of us who are going to stand up against this president's desire to cut Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security.
Were you saying you have no mandate? Is that what you just...
That's what he has no mandate to cut Medicaid. None.
Is the only punishment that you were kicked out, sir? Is there something?
I don't know. Whatever the punishment is, I'm not fighting the punishment. This is about the people who are being punished by virtue of losing their health care. This is the richest country in the world, and we have people who don't have good health care. We've got to do better. And now we're about to cut Medicaid, which is for poor people. Health care has become wealth care for many people, and we can't afford to let that happen.
Is that the only thing that you're protesting?
No, I have other things I'm protesting. And I'm also working on my articles of impeachment. This president is unfit. He should not hold the office. 34 felony convictions, 2 times impeached.
So because Al Green was willing to stand up and protest, he's been getting now media coverage about what that protest was about, which now has a greater focus on the fact that Trump's budget includes cuts to healthcare. This is why it's important for Democrats to make a noise. Even if you feel like you have no power, you have power in terms of setting a narrative and talking in media. If you're able to set the narrative the way that Republicans have for decades, where Democrats are always on the defense and having to react to what Republicans are saying, if you instead are able to set that narrative, then you force Republicans to react to you. So on the point that he made there, just to make it clear, Reuters discusses this, what U.S. social spending programs could be hit in a Trump tax cut. So they go on to write, House Republicans directed the committee that oversees the federal health insurance programs, Medicaid and Medicare, which serve elderly Americans, to find some $880 billion in spending cuts over 10 years. Direct cuts to healthcare, which of course Trump claimed he never would do. And now that is one of the first things that they are attempting to do. Now, I want to remind people of a different protest that happened during, this is one of Biden's State of the Union addresses, where they were heckling too. Now, on one hand here, you have Al Green protesting on behalf of his constituents, on behalf of healthcare, people losing their healthcare. What were these clowns protesting at the time? A remark about women's sports when Biden mentioned new laws targeting transgender Americans and their families, so they were being anti-trans. And they also started to chant, build the wall. So this was all a way to get attention on themselves. Clear difference there between a protest that Al Green gave and the one that these two dipshits did. Now, also worth just getting some perspective on what is happening in some other countries and how they protest. Here is chaos in Serbian parliament as opposition sets off smoke grenades and tear gas to protest against the government. That's one idea that I could never imagine any Democrat doing, but hey, it's worth having that perspective. Another example, in the New Zealand parliament, this made headlines back when it happened last year. They basically performed and ripped up a bill in protest of this bill that was a reinterpretation of the founding treaty. So, like, there are various ways. So that goes on for a couple minutes, but it was fantastic. Like, there are things that you can do. And Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer are not the leaders that any opposition needs right now. Let's get to another example of the Democratic failure last night. I'm not going to play the whole speech, but it's worth noting here that Slotkin mentioned, again, this attempt to appeal to these Republicans that don't exist anymore. As a Cold War kid, I am thankful it was Reagan and not Trump in office in the 1980s. Good God, can we stop with this Reagan glazing? Please, for the love of God, move on. How about discuss FDR? Discuss presidents that actually did shit who were Democrats. But no, going back to discussing how awesome Ronald Reagan was. Who is this for? I have no idea. So this currently has 437 views on the Democrats' YouTube page. Absolutely terrible. Now, to be fair, this was posted after, so this was not the live stream. The best version, or I should say the best performing version I could find, was on MSNBC, which is nearing 133,000 views. Compare that to what Bernie did last night. So Bernie Sanders often does a response to these sorts of speeches. He did one last night as well. While he was live, they were bringing in 91,000 live viewers. These are like Hassan Piker numbers. So this is very good for a live stream. And then he's now sitting at 2.5 million. So last I checked, this was at 2.2. This is getting a lot of views the next day. Now sitting at 2.5 million. And I went to compare that to one of the most recent ones I could find from Bernie responded to Trump. And that's back in 2019, where he got 244,000. So there is this renewed interest, I suppose, in a true resistance to Trump, that people are latching on to any politician who is actually willing to call him out. Let me play a piece of Bernie's response from last night.
President Trump, healthcare is a human right. I didn't hear one word from you, not one word. Over 90-minute speech, not one word from you about the healthcare crisis that is impacting many, many millions of our people. Nor did I hear you say why we pay by far the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs, sometimes 10 times more than the people in other countries, and why 1 out of 4 Americans are unable to afford the prescriptions their doctors prescribe. Not one word about the outrageously high cost of prescription drugs. Mr. President, we have nearly 800,000 Americans who are homeless. Over 20 million of our people spend more than half of their limited income on housing. We have a major housing crisis in America. Everyone knows it, apparently, except you. Because in your speech tonight, I didn't hear you mention the housing crisis. Today in America, we have more income and wealth inequality than we've ever had. 3 richest people in America, the folks Trump invited to stand behind him at his inauguration, now own more wealth than the bottom half of our society, 170 million Americans.
So I will link to that full video below. It's a great speech, about 20 minutes long. Facts, emotion, anger. This is what people should expect. This should be the bare minimum when it comes to an opposition party to Donald Trump. Yet, Bernie's one of the few people that is doing this and doing it consistently. I covered a couple of speeches that he gave in a couple of Republican districts when he was trying to flip to Republican lawmakers on Trump's budget. Like, this is a man who is putting in the work, and he's 83 years old. So if he can do it, you should expect every other Democrat to be able to do it. There should be a unified message here against Donald Trump. They should be setting the narrative. And right now, people like Bernie Sanders and Al Green are some of the few people that are actually doing this.